have Barb Stuckey from Mattson Trends join us today to talk about some ideas and areas that she sees, especially as we all look at consumer trends and how those can help influence the direction of our business and even the approach that we might have in terms of the wording that we take. Barb, welcome.
Okay, how's the sound? Good? All right. Well, hopefully I'm going to get you thinking a little bit differently and bigger and broader and beyond cold processing and HPP. So that's my goal today is to get everybody to think about the bigger, broader world of food. So I'm going to start with just a little bit about myself and my company, Mattson. So we are a San Francisco Bay Area based product insight, strategy, innovation, and development firm. So we take our clients from blank sheet of paper all the way through commercialization. And our clients will range from the smallest of the small, an entrepreneur with an idea working out of his garage, to multinational chain restaurants and CPG companies. So I have been at Mattson for almost 25 years. I have a new title now, Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer. I wrote a book about the science of taste. And so that is a passion. I teach the fundamentals of taste at the San Francisco Cooking School. And I write about the business of food for Forbes.com. And I write about food trends and consumer behavior and things like that. I'm lucky I get to write about what I want to write about. And then I sit on the advisory council of the Plant-Based Food Association. So that's me. And our team is made up of folks like me, but also strategists who are working on the front end of innovation, where we were just having a conversation about, do you talk to the baby food product developers? Do you talk to the marketing team? We do all of that front end work for our clients. And then we have scientists, mostly food scientists. We have some engineers, we have some nutritionists and chefs, and all the way to scale up specialists. We are all just driven by a passion for food, and you'll hear the passion come through today, hopefully. This just gives you an example of what we do for our clients. We don't like to put the logo up. We like to put the product that we actually get to market. And so that's a really important thing for us to show that we're effective for our clients, is to get new products to market. So that's why they come to us. And we've been doing this for almost 45 years. And like I said, I've been there 25 of those. We also work for the food service industry. And I'm interested to hear later about larger potential pack size options for this technology. So that will be really interesting for our team to learn about. And then lastly, this thing that you've been hearing about, and I know there is a talk at this conference about plant-based meats. This is an area where we have just been on fire, as you can imagine. Whatever trends are going through the industry, this is what we're working on. So we have worked on everything from plant-based chicken to plant-based shrimp to plant-based beef to dairy to you name it, all over the place. And then I just wanted to put up I believe this is the last product that we developed for a client that actually utilized HPP technology. So this is a line of cold brew coffee. So the coffee is super high quality, cold brewed, never sees a thermal process. And it is, you know how coffee makes you happy and gives you lots of energy. That's why we drink coffee. There are also some other ingredients in these coffees to give you a more well-rounded well-being experience. So we have some nootropics in there to help with brain health. We have some adaptogens to sort of well-round the buzz that you might get from coffee. It's called Pivot Cold Brew. And we were able to get 9 months of shelf life here, although the sensory starts to drop off in that period. But we worked really hard with this client. And I don't know, maybe some of you out there know it, and maybe somebody's making it. But it was a delicious product with a really interesting proposition of marrying coffee with adaptogens and nootropics and other functional well-being ingredients. Examples of what we do. So I'm going to talk about trends, but I can't not talk about the most obvious thing. You guys are wearing masks. How weird is that? That the last time I spoke at this conference was in 2017. If someone had told us we'd be sitting in a conference room with masks on, we would have laughed. We said, we don't do that in this country. Well, not everybody does it these days anyway, but we've got almost 2 years of pandemic that have influenced food and beverage. And so you can't not talk about it. It's got this impact on global culture, behaviors, and social habits. And so it really, we know what it's done so far. We can only speculate, and we are going to speculate today, on what's going to happen in the future with everything that happened during this crazy global pandemic. So it really has made an impact on every aspect of the food and beverage industry. And because I can speak about that, because we work with agricultural companies who are in the agribiz, they are growing crops. And then we work all along the value chain to, like I said, restaurant chains that are serving fresh food and consumer packaged goods. So everything has been upended and changed and turned around. So we like to say in the food business that oftentimes the food business is, we can be lemmings. We kind of follow what the next guy did or what the other guy did. But man, the speed and adoption of change, specifically last year in 2020, was incredible. We have never seen it like that. And so it was driven by social media that I'll talk about, the use of technology. And then we had this whole government thing that was going on, very political, mistrust. People were afraid of illness and death. And there was this political and social unrest going on. So that 2020 was this crazy, crazy year with everything going on. And really, I mean, if you think about this pandemic, whatever trend was out there, kind of taking baby steps, the pandemic kicked it. That trend's off and running. So that's kind of how we're viewing some of these things that we're going to talk about today. And I have 10 of them. So I'm going to go through them. Do we have a counter timer? You can keep me honest. Keep me honest. All right. So the banana bread is going to make more sense shortly, but I'm going to start with number one, which is video experiences making food communal. Also, we just got off of a video call at a conference that would also probably not have happened in 2017. So we have become incredibly comfortable with this technology in a way that we weren't before the pandemic. And the experience has really started to impact the way we're eating. So social interaction is now common. So people are experiencing new brands and new products via video because they can't go to the restaurant inside, for example, or they don't want to go to the grocery store, or they don't want to go wherever. And it's not just Zoom for work, but it's Zoom for everything. And what we've seen is Zoom being used to share meals with family. For example, you can see pictures here, virtual dinner party guide. So there are people out there who are putting on parties and doing the entire thing virtually, or at least part of it, like this conference, where we're doing part of it virtual and part of it in real life. Now, if this was a party, like a wedding or a dinner party, the food would be a major theme of it. And so people are figuring out how to share food and beverage from afar. And some interesting stuff is happening. So one of the things that we love was what happened in 2020 with the country of Canada and Easter dinner. And of course, the national governments of most countries are really trying to contain the spread of the pandemic through various means, one of which is getting people to stay home. And so what they did was they encouraged a communal virtual Easter dinner. This was back, during the start of the pandemic. But when you have someone, this was coming from the top, the Canadian government. And if they're going to be advocating these virtual family and friend events, that we know that that's going to become something that people are accepting of and really thinking that, hey, okay, we could do this. We can certainly get together just to share video-wise instead of having to travel. This really makes the video the hero of these events. And what it means is that, we're thinking about safety and of all of the people in our family or in our group. And we're going to have this nice experience, but it's not going to make anyone uncomfortable or potentially make them sick. Okay, so the other thing, and I'll refer to this a couple of times, I have a house up in the wine country in Northern California, and so I'm a little wine centric. What happened, and this was not unusual, and this was not unique to the wine industry, but during the shutdown, the wine industry, all the wineries were shut down unless they served food and beverage, and none of them do. So they were all of a sudden had this tourist trade. How do we get people to taste wine? Well, guess what the answer was? Video experiences of wine. So we had a couple of them that we would do with friends. And what would happen is the wineries will pack and ship the wine to your house along with some cheese or with some chocolate or whatever the tasting is. And people would get the box in their home and they would do a big Zoom. And what was really cool about this was we're wine club members for a lot of the wineries, but we didn't know the other people that were wine club members. And so we got to meet them on these communal Zoom wine tasting events. Now, we're also seeing some of these being done by ingredient suppliers in the food and beverage industry, flavor houses and companies that sell starches and gums and things that you wouldn't expect. But how do they get their applications in front of people who are developing foods? They have to send a box full. So this technique really works. And Zoom has just been incredibly helpful in spreading the ability or helping to make available the ability for people to have those communal food experiences, whether it's at work and sharing your ingredients with your potential customers, or whether it's at home and having Easter dinner with your family. Number two is travel's impact on food and beverage. And if we think about it, really think about the explosion of global cuisine in this country. And where does that come from? Well, it comes from traveling around the globe and people's interest in that, and the ease with which we have traveled and we go back and forth. So we have these travel experiences that impact food, and probably some of your most impactful experiences with food were on vacation, when you went somewhere to Europe or you went to Asia or you went to South America. This exposes people to new cuisines and new rituals and just new experiences overall. So that just didn't happen for a year and a half. I mean, most of us weren't traveling beyond our state lines, and even if you were going that far. So we have this massive influence on food trends that just got cut off. And so what happens when that occurs? Well, people aren't going to stop being creative, and they're not going to stop trying to experience the world. So, you have these bloggers who are out there who used to go around and post their experiences online. You didn't have that. So what happened was that these influencers, if you will, were kind of shut down. And then it was us. It was everybody else that had to become these influencers. And of course, we might have had a smaller social network than big paid and sponsored influencers, but maybe with much more homey imagery, sharing our experiences, even if they were in our home state or they were within our own town. So if people really discovered their inner Insta influencer, and you saw this uptick in Instagram and TikTok and other social media platforms with people sharing their food experiences when they couldn't go abroad or even to the other side of the country to have these experiences. So a couple of these. This is just my friend, Michael. He's someone that I follow on Instagram. He was sharing one of his experiences with food. He did a pretty awesome job. So, we're all kind of having to pick up the slack there. And I just want to say another thing about travel, which is I used to be a very frequent traveler. I do a lot of industry speaking like this. And that you'll notice that is my laptop cord. That's for my MacBook Pro. You will also notice that I am a little out of practice because I don't have one with me. and I traveled on a plane to get here without my power cord. I am completely dead on my laptop. So if anyone has a MacBook Pro charging cord, I could really use your help because I'm so out of practice with travel. So please find me afterwards if I can use 30 minutes of your power. That would be awesome. But you know, we're all out of practice in travel. And so what we're going to start to see, and we already are starting to see it now, is that people are going out into the world, and you're going to start to see some influences from outside come in. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, and how that's going to manifest itself. So number 3 is new ways of making protein. And of course, you have to start with the obvious, and we can't not talk about plant-based protein. It has been incredibly buoyed by the pandemic. And so there was this mainstream awareness, and this shift in thinking at home really happened during the pandemic. So we've been tracking this. I mean, we've been doing plant-based food development for 25 years, starting with corn back in the 1990s. But over the 18 months that we've been in these shutdowns, plant-based food has gained huge momentum in market share and momentum in number of SKUs that are being launched in the marketplace, but also just momentum in getting investment from the private equity community and the venture capital community, and investment from large CPGs. So we're seeing that continue to happen. Record sales. You can see, 930 million invested in alternative proteins. Just an incredible amount of money flowing into this. So there's much more awareness in the general population, just in general, about these plant-based items. Now, one of the channels of the food industry that's really, really helping this is QSR, or fast food. And when you say fast food, people think, ooh, I love fast food. It's really good food. It's really indulgent. It's going to taste good. When you go to fast food, the food generally tastes good. You could argue as to how healthy or nutritious it is, but it usually tastes really good. And so if we're going to start to see plant-based brands and plant-based menu items show up in fast food, that's a great place to get people hooked on it, or at least to have them try it, right? Because they trust their favorite fast food, whether it's Burger King or Starbucks with plant-based sausage, or Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, these are massive tens of thousands of unit chains out there that are starting to menu these items. So, even just one menu item on one of these chains signals to consumers that, hey, this thing is coming. Maybe you should try it here. It's kind of like when all the burger chains about, 3 or 4 decades ago, they all added a chicken sandwich. And it was, these burger chains now have chicken. That's what's happening right now with plant-based. And it's happening in a huge way. So, of course, we saw a lot of challenges with meat processing plants. We have a meat processing client right now. They are still having major labor issues and labor shortages, and it continues to this day. I can't believe I'm still talking about it a year and a half later, but it is a problem. And so consumers were hearing about that. They were hearing about people getting sick while they were working in meat processing plants. That freaks people out. They turned to and maybe tried plant-based for the first time. And then also, if we think about what we were hearing in 2020, it was about this virus that came from an animal and jumped to humans. And that really can get you thinking, just really a lot about eating animals. No matter what you think about, no matter what you think or thought about it before the pandemic, you're going to start to think about things differently. So what we're watching today is plant-based, yes, but now we're looking way beyond plant-based, or second wave or third wave of plant-based. So what I want to talk about is some plant-based alternatives that are coming out, but also what comes next. So Lemna, who out here knows what Lemna is? Anybody? Lemna, this is coming in a big way. Okay, well, Lemna is a plant-based source of protein. It is, for the moment, it is bright green. And I don't know if anybody has a pond in their backyard, but the pond sometimes will have this green stuff growing on top of the pond. That's Lemna. And I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. My mother-in-law has to shock her pond to kill the Lemna that grows on the top of it. Well, it turns out it's super prolific and it's super sustainable, and it grows really easily on the top of a pond. So somebody has, of course, decided to commercialize this. And there are actually, we have had 3 clients that are looking into lemna. So you're going to start to hear about this. Also known as water lentil, also known as duckweed, which we've talked people out of using. So that's coming. Air protein. Can anybody explain air protein, what it's made from? Anybody know? It's actually made from the elements in the air. So the elements in the air are harvested and used to make protein through a fermentation process. So we're watching them very closely. They got somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million recently to commercialize that. Evergrain, which is an upcycled BSG product. Who knows what BSG is? Brewer spent grains. So if you can, I don't know if you can see there, but this is AB InBev, Anheuser-Busch is working on this. What happens to all the grains after you make beer? They used to go to cow feed. Now we are using them to make protein. And so there's some really interesting stuff that is going on out there. Super brewed food. This is actually bacterial protein. There is Noblegen, which is Euglena gracilis, another microorganism that is making protein. Perfect Day is animal-free milk protein. It is real milk protein, identical to the protein that comes from milk, but it is not made from milking cows. And we've got Atlas, which is a mycelium-based protein. So you can't really call that a plant. It's not really a plant, it's a fungus. So you've got bacteria, you've got fungus, you've got air, you've got upcycled things, and now you've got cultivated, Upside Foods making cultivated chicken. And if you're asking yourself, what is cultivated? Cultivated is something we worked with the Good Foods Institute to help write a narrative around. It's about, you may have heard cell cultured meat. So you take a small sample of a chicken or of a cow or of a whatever, and you grow that using a cultivator. So you give it a warm environment with lots of food and you grow it. So you grow the cells instead of raising the animal that you then have to slaughter. You just grow the cells you want, the breast part or the fat part or the whatever. So how do you talk about these things? These are not plant-based. It's like the next thing, but how do you talk about bacterial protein? How do you talk about lemna? How do you talk about BSG and upcycled foods? This is what we're working on right now. All of this stuff is so exciting. And you're going to start to hear more and more about these things as they're commercialized. So we're already working with these materials. So it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. Direct to consumer groceries. This is another thing that really was just kicked along during the pandemic, and it has stuck, and it is a new way of life for many. So there's indications that projections that over the next 4 years, it will grow 12% per year. So if you're creating products for grocery today, what we expect is that more and more of them are going to be sold through either direct through the Safeway or the Walmarts.com or through these third-party delivery companies that are picking orders. So these huge big box grocery stores that you used to go to and pull stuff off the shelf, they're actually becoming these warehouses for third parties to go and pick from the inventory, pick your groceries for you, and then deliver them. I know that this has saved my life during the pandemic and also before. The same thing is happening with restaurant meals, right? So consumers were able to always order pizza and Chinese food and certain restaurants that would deliver. But during the pandemic, we saw that every segment of the restaurant industry, from fast food on up to white tablecloth, either had to figure out delivery direct to consumers' homes or they went under. And that was just the new normal. And so 53% of people out there are saying that purchasing takeout or delivery restaurant food is essential to the way that they live today. And that's happening in a way that it just wasn't 2 years ago. 68% say they're more likely to purchase it from a restaurant than they were before the outbreak. That's because a lot of them have figured it out and they weren't even offering takeout before. So now you've got lots more competition. That it's not just the grocery store, it's not just the prepared foods department. Now we're all competing against restaurants who have figured out how to get not just prepared food, but also some ingredients to consumers' homes. And if you were watching meal kits, as I have been doing for about a decade, not everybody gets a second chance, but direct-to-consumer meal kits really got a boost through the pandemic. And this really eliminated a grocery shopping trip when people were, still kind of hesitant to go to the grocery store. So this trend, which we were ready to put to bed in the beginning of 2020, we're now looking at this as a potential a thing that's going to continue on. So something that is showing new life. So I don't know about you guys, but I cooked 3 meals a day for my household for, I don't know, a year before we started going back to restaurants. And man, I'm sick of the same 7 things that we would make every week. So these meal kits are just like really helpful to get people to be able to step outside their normal repertoire of ingredients and the monotony of their own cooking. So 2020 showed like more than 100% growth in these, some of the larger meal kit companies. And we're predicting that they're going to stick. Shutdowns triggered the rebirth of cooking at home. And so, yes, who would have thought that Campbell's Soup would have had this resurgence when we're all moving to fresh foods, right? Everybody's heard that we're moving to the perimeter, that all the action is happening on the perimeter, and that's good for HPP technology, not so good for Campbell's, but people went center store. And so when people are out there, they were loading their pantries, and they were reminding themselves that these foods taste really good and they're comforting, and CPG skyrocketed. It's starting to level off now, and companies are trying to figure out where their new normal is. But it's definitely not going back to where it was. Once you figure out how nice it is to eat dinner with your family, eating food that you cooked at home that didn't cost as much as going out, people are going to be doing that more often, and certainly in the near term. The other thing is that people really got creative, and people were going online. They were looking for recipes. So we call this the banana bread pandemic, because look at that jump in just like right after the pandemic hit in March 2020, you saw this just huge spike in people searching for banana bread recipes, which is kind of interesting, because what were you doing in March of 2020? Everybody was hoarding food, right? Like you can't really hoard bananas because they start to smell and they go brown, and then you have to do something with them. Banana bread, and that's what people were doing. They were making banana bread out of all of that, all family appeal. But really, this is just this resurgence of baking, which people were not doing during the middle of the day. And that also changed. People are now the ability to work from home at least a day or 2 a week for most people who are working has changed the way that we eat, the way that we're baking a lot more. So things like this really got it started. There's now apparently a second wave of this. This is also like one of the trends we talked about earlier, this video experiences. So we might as well call this the feta pasta pandemic too, because there was this recipe that just sort of blew through the world. So there was this global bump from this recipe that started, I think it started in Finland. Was it Finland? Hold on. One of the Scandinavia. Yeah, it was a TikTok in Finland that literally started making its way around the world. And it just became this huge thing. So for people who are stuck at home, they were going to TikTok now. And TikTok has become this platform for people to share food. You've got a whole bunch of these like young chefs that, if I think about TikTok now as the new Food Network, it really is that powerful for young people. So this is my version of the pandemic feta pasta. Mine's on the right with my homemade olive oil, and you can see it's not quite the same, but at least I was inspired by this thing. So what I'm getting at here through talking about meal kits and restaurants and doing delivery and all these other things that are out there is that all of these channels that we used to think of as very blurred, the grocery store channel, the restaurant channel, they're all really coming together. There's a lot of restaurants that are going out there looking for incremental revenue sources. So they're looking at packaged foods for their brand. And I'm going to move on because I know I'm going long. Eating for immunity. This is also something that we see sticking. For the last 10 years, we've been focused on kind of general health and wellness. We know this has been one of the biggest trends that we've seen. But in 2020, we really went well beyond that. And we were eating to not get a virus. And again, this was something we never could have foreseen. That means that what people were doing was they were out there educating themselves on what immunity meant. So how do I stay well? How do I stay healthy so that I don't get this thing? Before the pandemic, we knew that vitamin C and maybe echinacea, and there's zinc that you could use to try to ward off colds. Now there's this whole host of new ingredients that are purported to help you with your immunity, from elderberry to golden seal to mushrooms. Even dairy proteins are seen as having some functional aspect for immunity. And of course, the big winner we think is vitamin D. And people, most of us don't get enough vitamin D. All you have to really do is go outside and be in the sun regularly. But during the pandemic, we weren't. We were inside. So, a lot of people started to become aware of their vitamin D levels, and we're seeing vitamin D supplements really increase. This is the #1 nutrition trend and the #1 supplement. If you go to Amazon or wherever you buy supplements or wherever people are buying supplements, it's all about immunity. People are looking for this through probiotics or whatever the ingredients are. New forms of experiential eating. So we talked about meal kits, right? So people were looking for something to help them get past the monotony of their own cooking. What normally is the way you get past the monotony of your own cooking is you go out to a restaurant, you have a nice restaurant meal. And so we weren't able to do that. And even today you can do it, but it's really expensive. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of things that are happening in the background that you don't know around supply chain, which Jasper, I think, was talking about earlier. But supply chain issues that are happening that make eating out in restaurants a lot more expensive, and the labor shortage is making them a lot more painful of an experience. A lot of people can't get the ingredients they need to put on their menus. So the restaurant industry is still really struggling, and they are not working at 100% capacity. So it's not going to change anytime soon. It's probably going to take a couple of years to get back to normal. So people are still looking for those restaurant experiences, though. That's where we used to go to have the food experiences, right? So when we started looking at all of these things that towards the beginning of 2021, we were looking at this one recipe that just took off. It was how to make, I don't know if you can see this, how to make butter chicken at home. And this is a Bombay chef. And it's about this, I don't know about you, but something I would never attempt to make at home is Indian food. I just have no idea where to start. And so, back when we were looking at this in early 2021, it had 26 million views, 29 million views. Last night, it had 32 million views. I mean, people are still looking for foods that they normally would get at restaurants and want to make at home online. They're trying to create these experiences. We think this behavior is really going to stick. And so what we're telling our clients is that if you can have products that give people these experiences at home, and they can do things at home that they weren't able to do before, that's a win for consumers. At least we think it's going to continue. Then there's some crazy stuff going on out there where, restaurants were, when they were really struggling, they were setting up shop elsewhere to give restaurant patrons an experience. So if hotels are empty and they're, not necessarily full, then these restaurant chefs were going into hotel rooms and they were doing these experiences in a hotel room. So people could go Chefs were out there. They wanted to work. They wanted to cook for people. So hotel rooms, food trucks, restaurants started putting out meal kits. A number of them had meal kits. My favorite pasta restaurant in San Francisco, Pasta and Pizza, they have a pasta kit now. And I may never have to go there again for pasta because it's just as good when I buy it and make it at home. So this is things that will be competing with grocery store foods. So this is another form of experiential eating, where large venue events where, you know, of course we were just talking about the fact that there should be a couple hundred people in this room, but people are still not attending because we're still in the midst of this crazy thing. And so what happens is if you are a large venue event like the opera, and we happen to be opera fans, you got to figure out some way to get your product in front of consumers, or you're going to go under and you will have to lay off your awesome singers. So this was drive-in opera in San Francisco, and we did drive-in. And what was really cool is they encouraged you to bring food, and of course we brought wine, and we also took our cats with us. You can't see that, but since we were staying in the car the whole time, we took our cats. And so we sat in the car and we had this amazing picnic experience. We watched the San Francisco Opera with our own food and a bottle of wine, and it was just amazing. And these kinds of things are happening out there. So there's this new creativity that our people are tapping into. Sustainability, it's now table stakes with every single one of our clients. It's not even an, are you concerned about? And on our product development briefs, it is absolutely everyone is thinking about it. Due to movement restriction and a significant slowdown of social and economic activities, air quality has improved in many cities with a reduction in water pollution in different parts of the world. Think about that. That's what happened when we shut down as a society. And the businesses, the people, everything, I don't know about you, but my commute is still half of what it used to be. It's maybe like 2/3 of what it used to be. Didn't happen overnight, but almost. We started to see air quality improving. So there's new thinking around our, meaning mine and yours and everyone's impact on the environment simply by just going through the motions of life. And so we are always focused on making sure the ingredients we're sourcing have some sustainability story. Sustainable packaging is just a huge issue. I'm going to be going to Pack Expo and looking around. Every single one of our clients is asking, what can we do that's the furthest out innovation in packaging? And it's not a lot of good stuff out there. Dunkin' Donuts just introduced that they have a compostable straw that doesn't weep like, you know, some of those awful paper straws are. Anyway, because people weren't eating out as much over the last year and a half, you also were, if you're eating more grocery food where the packages are smaller, we usually don't see the waste at restaurants because we are sitting front of house. But when we're eating at home and we're buying grocery store food, every single box, every single bottle, every single jar, every single can goes into our bins. And so we're seeing it firsthand, what we're creating. I am shocked at the amount of trash my household of 2 creates, and 2 cats, and they eat cans. So it is incredible how impactful this pandemic has been on people's awareness of the solid waste that we create. This is something that's coming, 2 different ways to approach this circular economy with food and beverage. This is Zero Grocery. They're a new startup. They've just gotten an incredible amount of equity funding. It's a zero plastic grocery store. And when I say zero plastic, not even plastic bags inside boxes. So for example, cereal. So they're bulk buying cereal and putting it into containers. So there's no plastic bag inside. It is really the new milkman, right? It's a direct to consumer. So this is taking a number of trends. It's direct to consumer. It is sustainability. It is no plastic, and you get it to your home. Now, also, I saw that they were repacking Cinnamon Toast Crunch from General Mills into glass jars, which are reusable, and they pick them up and they take them back and they recycle them. Not sure that's the best use of this platform, but they'll figure out where the sweet spot is, like whether it's cleaning products or whether it's center of the plate meats and entrees or whether it's what it is, but they'll figure it out. Loop is another service that is working with some big brands, as you'll see. And what they're doing is taking products that come in single-use containers and starting to sell them in reusable containers so that people can buy them in a reusable container. And then, you have ways you either drop them off or they're picked up or you send them back. Even Burger King, I mean, this is a fast food restaurant, is looking at reusable containers. I think Starbucks just said that they are now going to fill reusable containers again. So this is starting to happen. And then there's the empowered consumer, people that are really, really, really motivated to enact change through their food and beverage purchases. So 1/3 of US adults say they spend more time thinking about the climate than they did before the pandemic. And it's because of all those reasons I talked about, seeing your own waste and hearing about the air quality improving and seeing that there's less traffic out there. Social media and video content exposes consumers to the impacts of climate change. They're framing the environment as a personal and an emotional issue. And I know if you have kids under the age of, let's say, 18, it is a big deal to them. And they're blaming us, and we got to do something about it. 32% of consumers prioritize companies that are actively reducing their impact on the environment. So this is really a part of what we do for our clients. We have to, because transmission fear, we're still in this. I mean, I don't know about you, but I am still sanitizing things every now and then. I'm scared of losing my sense of smell because I taste prototypes for a living. But really, the pandemic, it kickstarted the acceleration of this touchless thing. Early on, their sanitizers were even in short supply, so you couldn't get the Clorox stuff. And so technology started to solve the problem. We didn't exchange cash, for example, and places that only took cash or were taking cash were no longer taking cash. Now it's all card. You've got delivery bots that are happening. You've got self-service. I don't know about you, but when I checked into the Link Hotel, I checked myself in. That's touchless check-in at a hotel. And this is all about fear of having to come in contact with other human beings. It's really it's gonna be everywhere. So, before we were starting to see more touchless interfaces for food and beverage, but this is coming now. You'll see the condiment thing, you see the beverage dispensers. White Castle is even looking at touchless food preparation. So no human hands have touched this White Castle slider. Being able to talk about that would be a big leap forward for consumers. DoorDash, the largest of the third-party delivery services for restaurants. First of all, they're delivering C-store food and they're starting to deliver drugstore food. So they're coming into grocery. It's going to happen any day. They bought this company called Sally, the salad robot. And if you think about that, just think about what DoorDash does. They pick up food from human beings who have made it and they deliver it to other human beings. They could be the mode of transmission. So what if they had these automated robots that could make certain foods that are high risk, for example, like produce? This is a salad, right? High risk food, no thermal processing whatsoever. Behold, a second era of vending. I think this is coming in a big way, huge opportunity in vending. And lastly, partisan food and beverage brands. And this was something that we couldn't help but add to our trends list at the beginning of this year after what happened in the transition of power and all of what went down. And I am standing up here as nonpartisan. I'm just telling you what happened out there. But there were brands that started to stand for political beliefs. And if you don't believe that, just look at what happened to the My Pillow guy, right? What was happening was that there was so much going on. We were sitting inside because of the pandemic, staring at screens 24 hours a day, watching the news cycle. And brands were either starting to make political stands or somebody else was making political stands for them. I don't know if you know this coffee company It's a veteran-owned coffee company for people who love America. And with a mission focus, we learned as military members serving this great country, committed to supporting veterans, law enforcement, and first responders. You can probably assume what their politics are simply by the statement and the positioning of the brand. And we also know what happened to Goya. And this is, it's unfortunate. These are great products, but he praised Trump and he lost everyone who didn't like Trump. So you have to be really careful out there. But what we are starting to see is that, the liberals and Democrats then refused to buy this product. That's AOC saying, oh, look, it's the sound of me Googling how to make your own adobo, which is kind of funny. But this is something that I hadn't really expected to come to my world, which was the polarization and partisan ship that happens, that we see in politics coming to food. So I'm happy to answer questions, happy to send a copy of this for everyone to see. And what we're hoping for 2022 is, we know a lot of these trends are moving forward. Everyone vaccinated or herd immunity, we're hoping we get there. I can't believe I'm still talking about this, but a healthy and prosperous restaurant industry, that will be really great for everyone who's looking for those experiences we talked about. Awesome food experiences we haven't even imagined yet that are going to come out of this. A peaceful, we're all in this together culture, and innovation. And I have to tell you right now, I am proud to say that innovation is back, like on fire. We have more business than we can handle. We have a 4-week waiting list to start new product innovation projects. It's happening. And so if your clients, whoever, are not innovating, then they're going to be caught behind, because it is on fire at this very moment. So if we can help you with anything, let us know. And I don't know if we have time.
Yep, thank you. We've got time for 2 or 3 questions. Anybody, go ahead to the mic, and as you're going, go ahead over to the mic to ask the question. As you're asking that, I have to tell you, I'm still trying to process lemna, but I agree that it's better than duckweed as a naming convention. The second part, a question for you. You mentioned 2 things that I think are polar opposites. One says food service is slowly coming back and we're going to stay at home. I don't think that's going to happen, only because time. So when we go back to traveling with the children for activities or sports or recitals or whatever it is, you're going to go back to that loss of time and say, I can't be cooking at home. What are your thoughts on that?
So I want to be careful, because I may have misspoke. I don't think people are staying at home, but they're going to be at home more than they were. Okay. So what we have seen is that a lot of companies have changed their work from home policies. And so what that allows for is has that happened at your company? I know we have work from home policies, right? So what I mean is, even if there's 1 extra day a week at home, that's 3 meals a day at home that you might have eaten away from home. So that those changes in those policies, we think, are going to impact overall the balance. It was just about getting to 50% of food was purchased for consumption at home, 50% away from home. And I think that's, for the time being, it's still going to be weighted more heavily to at home. It'll probably I'm with you though, that it's going to get back, but I think the work from home thing is going to stick, and that's going to have an impact. It has to have an impact, because breakfast and lunch, you're probably not going out to fast food to get your McDonald's McMuffin, because you're going to be working from home, right? You're going to eat a Pop-Tart instead or whatever.
Question.
Yeah. I'm Mike Biller with HydroFresh HPP. First of all, Barb, great presentation on the insights that you have there. Just wanted to ask a follow-up question. You mentioned that 68% of consumers feel more comfortable buying takeout from a restaurant or home delivery from a restaurant versus other avenues. What are your thoughts on ghost kitchens and the ability of people to launch new products, particularly in the plant-based area, through ghost kitchens to take advantage of that restaurant delivery option?
So I think it's a huge opportunity. We've actually presented that opportunity to some clients. I think there's the opportunity for consumer packaged goods brands to go into ghost kitchens and start to offer whatever it is that they offer. So let's just say it's, I'm trying to think of something that would make sense. Like it's Pillsbury baking mixes, right? Like why not a Pillsbury bakery? All you need is a ghost kitchen, right, to do this. Or if it's Stubbs barbecue sauce, what about a Stubbs barbecue restaurant that you can do through a ghost kitchen? So Walmart is putting ghost kitchens into Walmarts so that they can offer people a takeout option that's not their brands, it's other brands that are coming in. So I think it's going to be huge. We know that, DoorDash has announced that they're starting to build their own ghost kitchens for people to use. So that's really interesting when the actual delivery company starts to invest in the real estate and they're operating the ghost kitchens. It's something we're watching really closely. I think there are lots of opportunities. I'm not sure if that's where you were going with
Well, yeah,
it.
I'm just kind of curious in, what particular role we as an HPP industry can play in helping promote ghost kitchen opportunities for people to sell their products.
I mean, because ghost kitchens is where you make fresh food, right? Fresh food is prepared. I think HPP lends itself so well to that kind of a system. So, I mean, I think HPP and food service is just underutilized to begin with. That's to me is a huge opportunity.
Okay. Thanks, Barb.
Other questions? Once, twice? All right, Barb, thank you very much. We
Well, thank you
appreciate
guys
that.
for having us. Yeah, thank you.